She was born with two heads. In the small village of 𝐬𝐵𝐻𝐻, where the sun kissed the earth with golden warmth and the river whispered secrets to the trees, there lived a woman named Nana. She was known for her kindness, her warm smile, and the way she sang as she walked through the village. But there was one thing about Nana that made people whisper behind her back: her pregnancy had lasted far too long. A normal woman carried a child for 9 months, but Nana had carried hers for 12. It was unheard of. Even the old women who had seen many births shook their heads in disbelief. "This is not normal," they whispered. "Even an elephant does not wait this long." Nana herself was worried, but she tried to stay strong. She believed that the gods had a reason for everything. But deep inside, fear crept into her heart. Then, one bright morning, as the cock crowed, Nana felt a sharp pain in her belly. It was time. Her screams echoed through the village. Women dropped their cooking pots, men left their farms, and children ran after their mothers, all rushing to Nana's hut. Inside, the midwife, an old woman named Mama Agba, wiped her sweaty forehead and whispered prayers under her breath. The baby was coming, but something felt wrong. Outside, the villagers waited, their hearts pounding like drums in a festival. Finally, the door creaked open, and Mama Agba stepped out. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with shock. "It is a girl," she whispered, voice shaking. "But, has 2 heads." The villagers gasped. Some covered their mouths, others turned away. "2 heads," one man muttered. "What kind of child is this? Is it a curse or a blessing?" a woman whispered. Inside the hut, Nana held her baby close, her eyes filled with love. She did not care what the villagers thought. To her, this child was special. "My daughter," she whispered, pressing a kiss on the baby's soft cheeks. Mama Agba looked at the baby with wonder. One head was fair, like the golden sands by the river. The other was dark, like the deep shadows of the forest. "What shall we call her?" someone asked. An elder with a long white beard stepped forward and raised his hand. "Let the heads have names," he said. "The fair one shall be called Abigail, for peace. The dark one shall be called Ada, for strength." And so, the child was named Abigail and Ada, the girl with 2 heads and 1 body. The villagers went back to their homes, whispering about what they had seen. Some believed the child was a gift from the gods, while others were sure Nana had done something terrible to bring such a strange baby into the world. But Nana did not care. She held her child close and promised to love her, no matter what the world said. As the sun rose and set, Abigail and Ada grew fast, like yam vines after the first rain. Nana often shook her head and laughed. "These 2 heads share one stomach," she would say. "They cry together, eat together, and even sleep at the same time." The villagers watched them with curiosity. Though many still whispered behind Nana's back, no one could deny that the child was intelligent. Abigail and Ada learned to walk earlier than other children. While other babies stumbled, they ran. They didn't just talk, they spoke in ways that made people stop and listen. By the time they started school, it was clear that they were different in more ways than one. In the classroom, Abigail and Ada always knew the answers. "No wonder they are the best," the other children said. "They have 2 heads." The teacher was proud. "Abigail and Ada are a blessing to this village," he said. "One day, they will make us proud." But despite their intelligence, the sisters did not always agree. Abigail loved rice, the way the grains felt soft and fluffy when cooked just right. Ada, on the other hand, preferred beans, especially with spices too. At the dining table, they would argue like 2 market women. "Rice is better," Abigail would insist, her fair head turning slightly. "No, beans are better," Ada would argue back, shaking her dark head. Nana would laugh and shake her head. "You two settle down," she would say. "Rice today, beans tomorrow." But it wasn't just food they disagreed on. Abigail loved bright yellow dresses, while Ada preferred red ones. Abigail liked sunny days, while Ada loved rainy afternoons. Yet, despite their small quarrels, the sisters always found a way to compromise. "Fine," Abigail would say. We'll take the yellow dress today and the red one next time. The villagers watched them with amazement. 2 heads, 1 body, they would say. Even if they fight, they have no choice but to get along. And so, life went on, and the sisters grew stronger, their bond unbreakable. But as they grew older, their differences became more difficult to ignore. And soon, they would face a problem bigger than food and dresses, one that would change their lives forever. The sisters blossomed into beautiful young women. Their laughter softened, their steps became graceful, and their eyes shone with wisdom. The villagers admired them, but there was one problem. How can you marry 2 heads? The men whispered among themselves. It's like having 2 wives in one body. Abigail and Ada heard the whispers, but they kept their heads high. The right man will come, Nana told them. Be patient, my daughters. And finally, 3 men showed interest in marrying them. The first was 𝐃𝐨𝐧'𝐭, tall, bold, and confident. He had a deep voice and a loud laugh. Ada's dark eyes sparkled the first time she saw him. He is the one, she whispered. He is strong, handsome, and fearless. But Abigail was not convinced. He's too loud, she said, frowning. I don't like him. Ada begged her to give 𝐃𝐨𝐧'𝐭 a chance. He's perfect for us, she insisted. Reluctantly, Abigail agreed. The wedding was grand, with drummers, dancers, and a feast across the village square. At first, everything seemed fine. Ada loved 𝐃𝐨𝐧'𝐭's strength, but Abigail couldn't stand him. He doesn't care about what I want, she complained. He only listens to Ada. The argument started small, then grew like a wildfire. One night, Abigail finally said, I can't live like this, Ada. Why should I be stuck with someone I don't love? 𝐃𝐨𝐧'𝐭 tried his best to please both of them, but after 1 year, the marriage crumbled. He walked away, his head bowed in defeat. The villagers shook their heads. We knew this would happen, they said. 2 heads, 1 body, it's a curse. But Abigail and Ada didn't listen. They returned to their mother's house, hearts heavy but determined. And so, they waited for love once more. After kin left, Abigail and Ada felt like they had failed again. Their mother, Nana, sighed heavily. My daughters, she said, wiping their tears, love is patient. Do not give up. But whispers filled the village. This is the 3rd time, the villagers murmured. No man can love them both. Abigail and Ada tried to ignore the gossip, but deep inside, doubt crept into their hearts. Then, one day, a new man arrived in the village. His name was Obinna, a merchant who traveled from place to place. Obinna was different from the others. He was lively, always laughing and telling stories. His voice was warm, his smile wide and welcoming. When Obinna met Abigail and Ada, he grinned. 2 heads, twice the beauty, he said with a laugh. For the first time, both sisters smiled at the same man. I like him, Abigail whispered. I like him too, Ada agreed. Nana saw their excitement and prayed. May this one bring them peace. The wedding was joyful, filled with music, laughter, and dancing. For the first few months, life was sweet. Obinna showered them with gifts from his travels, beautiful fabrics, sparkling beads, and delicious spices. At night, he told them stories of faraway lands, and they would laugh under the moonlight. But soon, the troubles began. Abigail felt that Obinna spent too much time with Ada. He only loves you, she complained one night. He hardly looks at me. That's not true, Ada snapped. You're just jealous because he likes my laughter. The argument started small, but they grew like a storm. At first, Obinna tried to calm them. My beautiful wives, he would say, holding their hands, why do you fight? You are both precious to me. But his words could not stop the storm. One night, in the heat of an argument, Abigail and Ada began hitting each other. Their voices were sharp, their anger burned like fire. Obinna stood in the corner, his hands on his head. Enough, he shouted. I cannot live like this. I love you both, but I cannot take this madness. And with that, after 1 year, Obinna left, his once bright smile replaced by sorrow. The villagers shook their heads. It is clear now, they whispered. They are cursed. Abigail and Ada returned to Nana's hut, their hearts heavy with guilt and sadness. Their mother tried to comfort them, but even her gentle words could not heal their pain. Then, one fateful day, everything changed. The sun burned hot in the sky as Abigail and Ada walked toward the river, a water pot balanced on their shared head. Their hearts felt heavier than the pot they carried. They walked in silence, their spirits low. When they reached the river, they set down the pot and sat on the grassy bank, watching the water ripple in the sunlight. For the first time, Abigail let a tear roll down her cheek. It dripped onto Ada's darker skin, mixing with her own silent tears. Then, they noticed her. An old woman sat on a smooth rock by the river. Her back was bent like an old tree, her face was covered in deep wrinkles, but her eyes sparkled like stars. "Why are you crying, my children?" she asked, her voice soft but strong. Abigail and Ada looked up, startled. "Who is she?" Abigail whispered. "I don't know," Ada replied, wiping her tears. The old woman smiled gently. "Come closer," she said, patting the rock beside her. Something about her felt safe, like the warmth of their mother's embrace. The sister stood up and sat beside her. "Tell me why you are crying," the old woman said again. The words spilled out like water from a broken pot. Abigail and Ada told her everything, the failed marriages, the whispers of the villagers, and the deep sadness that sat in their hearts. The old woman listened quietly, nodding now and then. When they finished, she looked at them with understanding eyes. "Your pain is heavy," she said. "But it is not without cause." "What do you mean?" Abigail asked, her voice trembling. The old woman leaned closer. "Ask your mother what happened when she was pregnant with you," she said. "She has a secret." "A secret?" Ada echoed, her eyes wide. The old woman nodded. "A truth that has been buried for too long. Go, my children. Speak to her." Before they could ask more, the old woman stood up. She walked to the river's edge and disappeared into the twilight, leaving only ripples on the water. Abigail and Ada sat in silence, her words echoing in their minds. They picked up their pot, filled it with water, and hurried home. They were determined to find out the truth. When they returned home, Nana was cooking. She looked up, smiling, but the moment she saw their faces, the smile faded. "What is it, my children?" she asked, setting down her wooden spoon. Abigail and Ada sat at her feet, their voices trembling. "Mama," Abigail began. "We need to talk." Nana's eyes narrowed. "What is wrong?" Ada spoke quickly, her words rushing like the river. "We met an old woman by the river," she said. "She told us, you have a secret." Nana froze. Her hands, wrinkled and strong, gripped the edge of her wrapper. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Mama, please," Abigail begged. "Tell us the truth. What happened when you were pregnant with us?" Nana's eyes filled with tears. She looked away, staring at the fire, as if searching for courage in its flames. Finally, she took a deep breath. Her voice was heavy with sorrow. "It is not something I ever wanted to talk about," she said softly. "But maybe it is time you knew." Nana wiped her tears with the edge of her wrapper. Her hands trembled as she sat down beside Abigail and Ada. "My daughters," she began, her voice low and filled with sorrow, "there is something I never told you." The room was silent, except for the distant crackling of the fire. "When I was pregnant with you," Nana continued, her eyes staring into the flames, "something happened. Something that changed everything." Abigail and Ada leaned in, their hearts pounding. "One day, when the sun was so hot it burned the earth, I was coming back from the market. My throat was dry, and I was tired. I passed by the river and saw the water, so clear and cool." Nana closed her eyes, as if reliving the moment. "I knew the village law," she said. A pregnant woman must never drink from the river at midday. It was forbidden. The elders said the river spirit does not like to be disturbed when the sun is at its highest. Abigail and Ada held their breath. But I was thirsty, Nana whispered. I thought, just one sip wouldn't hurt. She swallowed hard before continuing. I bent down to drink, and the moment the water touched my lips, I felt it, a cold hand on my shoulder. Abigail gasped. Ada's hands clutched her wrapper. I turned around, and there she was, Nana said, her voice trembling. The river spirit. She was tall, with long flowing hair that shimmered like water. Her eyes were like deep pools, and when she spoke, her voice was like thunder. Nana shivered. You have broken the sacred law, she said. For this, you will pay. Abigail and Ada stared, frozen. I begged her for mercy, Nana continued, her voice cracking. But she only laughed. You were meant to have twins, she said. But now, because of your disobedience, they will be born as one. 2 heads, 1 body. Let this be your punishment. Nana covered her face, her body shaking. I never told anyone, she sobbed. I was ashamed. I prayed that the curse would not affect you, but it did. Abigail and Ada sat in stunned silence. For so many years, they had wondered why they were born this way. And now, they finally knew the truth. A curse. A punishment from the river spirit. The fire flickered, casting shadows across the hut. Abigail was the first to speak. Mama, she whispered. Why didn't you tell us before? I thought, Nana's voice broke. I thought if I never spoke of it, the curse would lose its power. But now I see, it has shaped your whole lives. Ada clenched her fist. So we have suffered because of a mistake you made, she asked, her voice filled with pain. Tears rolled down Nana's cheeks. Yes, my daughter, she said softly. And I am so sorry. Abigail turned to Ada. We must go back to the river, she said. Ada nodded. The old woman, she whispered. She said there is a way to break the curse. Nana's eyes widened. The old woman, she repeated. You mean, she spoke to you? Abigail and Ada nodded. She told us to ask you about the truth, Abigail said. And now, we must return to her. Nana grabbed their hands. My daughters, please, she begged. Do not anger the river spirit again. We have no choice, Ada said, her voice firm. We need to find her. Nana sighed, knowing she could not stop them. Then be careful, my daughters, she whispered. And if you see the river spirit again, beg for her mercy. With that, Abigail and Ada stood, determined. They would find the old woman. And they would do whatever it takes to break the curse. The night was dark when Abigail and Ada arrived at the riverbank. The water glowed faintly under the moonlight, rippling like silver silk. The old woman was waiting. You have returned, she said, her voice gentle but powerful. Yes, Abigail said. Mama told us everything. Ada stepped forward. Tell us, old mother, she said. Can the curse be broken? The old woman nodded. It can, she said. But the price is high. Abigail and Ada exchanged a glance. What must we do? Abigail asked. The old woman's eyes shone like stars. You must return to the village, she said. Tell them what has happened. For the curse to be lifted, the entire village must make an offering to the river spirit. Ada frowned. What kind of offering? For 7 days, the old woman said, the people must bring food, oil, and animals to the river. And you, Abigail and Ada, must stay in the shrine by the river, fasting and praying. Abigail's heart tightened. 7 days without food, she whispered. The old woman nodded. Only then would the river spirit listen. Ada clenched her fist. We will do it. The old woman smiled sadly. Go, my daughters, she said. Tell the village. If they agree, the curse can be lifted. If not, we remain as you are. Abigail and Ada felt a chill in the air. The weight of the old woman's words settled on their hearts. Would the village help them? Or would they refuse, leaving them cursed forever? There was only one way to find out. With fear and hope battling inside them, the sisters turned and walked back toward the village. The path ahead was uncertain. They were determined to face it together. Abigail and Ada walked back to the village, their hearts pounding. Would the villagers agree to help them break the curse? As they entered the village square, people turned to look at them. Some whispered, others simply stared. They climbed onto the elders' platform, where important village matters were discussed. Abigail took a deep breath. "My people," she began, her voice steady. "We know why we were born this way." The crowd leaned in, curious. Ada continued. "Our mother disobeyed the laws of the river," she said. "She drank from it when she was pregnant with us. And the river spirit cursed us." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Nana, standing at the back, lowered her head in shame. One of the elders, 𝐾𝐨𝐧'𝐭, stepped forward. "What do you want from us?" he asked. "The river spirit can lift the curse," Abigail explained. "But it will take all of us." The villagers murmured. "The entire village must make offerings to the river for 7 days," Ada continued. "And we must fast and pray in the shrine." There was a long silence. Then a man shook his head. "This is not our problem," he said. "Why should we all suffer?" another woman added. "They are cursed," someone shouted. "Let them be." Abigail felt tears sting her eyes. Would they really refuse? Then Nana stepped forward. "My daughters need your help," she said. "This is my mistake, but they have suffered enough." More mamas rose in the crowd. Then, suddenly, a young woman spoke up. "I will bring offerings," she said. "I will too," an old man added. One by one, more villagers agreed to help. Finally, 𝐾𝐨𝐧'𝐭 raised his staff. "The village will help," he said. "Let the preparations begin." Abigail and Ada let out a sigh of relief. It was time to break the curse. On the first day, the villagers brought yams and palm oil to the river. On the second day, they offered chickens and fresh fruits. On the third day, they brought goats, their cries echoing through the trees. Meanwhile, Abigail and Ada stayed in the shrine, weak from hunger but strong in spirit. They prayed morning and night, their voices rising like smoke from a fire. At times, Ada's stomach rumbled in hunger. At times, Abigail felt dizzy. But they did not stop. "We must endure," Ada whispered. "We will endure," Abigail agreed. By the 7th day, the sky grew dark. Thunder rumbled. The river, once calm, rose high like a wild beast. The villagers gathered, their faces filled with fear. Suddenly, the old woman appeared. "Come out, my children," she called. Abigail and Ada stepped out of the shrine, their legs weak, their hearts racing. Then, silence. The storm stopped. The river became calm, as smooth as glass. The villagers held their breath. Then a gasp, from Nana. Abigail and Ada stood apart. They were no longer conjoined. Each had her own body. The curse was broken. The villagers erupted in cheers. "The river spirit has forgiven them," someone shouted. Nana wept and held her daughters tight. "My children," she whispered, "you are free." For the first time, Abigail and Ada felt whole. They could finally live their own lives. That night, the village celebrated. Drummers played, dancers toured, and food was shared. The old woman watched from the shadows, a soft smile on her face. Then, like mist, she disappeared into the night. As months passed, Abigail and Ada adjusted to life apart. No longer forced to share everything, they discovered who they truly were. But one question remained, would they ever find love? One day, a kind blacksmith arrived in the village. His name was 𝐼𝐶𝐾, and he was drawn to Abigail's gentle nature. At the same time, a humble farmer named Obiora noticed Ada's strong spirit. For the first time, the sisters could choose their own paths. But had they truly learned from the past? Abigail's choice. 𝐼𝐾 was patient and kind. He listened to Abigail's dreams, he laughed at her jokes, and he treated her with respect. One evening, under the bright moon, he took her hand. "Will you be my wife?" he asked. Abigail's heart raced. This time, she had a choice. She smiled. Yes. Obiora admired Ada's strength, but he also saw her gentle side. One day, as they walked by the fields, he said softly, "You are strong, Ada, but you do not have to fight alone." Ada paused. For so long, she had fought to prove herself. But here was someone who saw her, truly saw her. And so, when Obiora asked, "Will you marry me?" she smiled and said, "Yes." The village prepared for a grand wedding. For the first time, Abigail and Ada would be married separately. It was a celebration of freedom, of love, and of a new beginning. Nana watched her daughters with pride. Their journey had been long and painful, but they had finally found happiness. Years passed. Abigail and Ada built happy homes. They had children of their own, who played in the village square. And though they lived separate lives, they remained closer than ever. Their story became a lesson, a tale told around the fire. A tale of mistakes and redemption. Of sacrifice and healing. One day, Nana sat outside her hut, watching her grandchildren play. She sighed, feeling at peace. Then, by the riverbank, she saw her. The old woman. She stood on a rock, watching, smiling. And then, like a wave in the wind, she vanished. Nana whispered a thank you. For the lessons. For the second chances. For everything. And so, the curse became legend. A story passed down for generations. A story of hope, love, and the power of sacrifice. The end.
Enjoyed the tale? If so, please like the video, comment, share it with your family and friends, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell for more enchanting tales like this one. Goodbye.